Hello and welcome to Tabletop Oddity, you crazy people. My name is Jay and today we're going to be looking at Han Solo, and I would like to say basic builds, but we're just going to have a look at one build and then we're going to talk about him, how to fit him into lists, do you pair him up with Leia, Luke, etc, that kind of thing. I used to do like basic builds, but the reality is we're getting like sort of so many options now, it becomes a bit awkward to talk about them all. So we're just going to sort of narrow it down and look at it more like from an entire point of view. Hopefully you'll enjoy that kind of video a little bit more. So let's have a look at Han Solo. Excuse the card being a bit skew with. He's 120 points. That puts him essentially 30 points more than Leia, I believe, and I think 40 points cheaper than Luke. Right, that's fine. No necessarily complaints there. And he sort of fits that sort of middle ground. He's an unorthodox general, and I think that really like sums him up. He's not your standard general, basically. He's not your support general, and he's not your super aggressive like Luke Skywalker type. He's like he's that rogue, isn't he? We'll talk about his special abilities in a moment. Let's have a look at his He's got 6 wounds, 2 courage, offensive and defensive surge, blaster pistol is 2 red, range 2, pierce 2. In melee combat at 3 white, it's pretty garbage, but I guess that's fine. Let's have a look at his abilities. Low profile. While defending, if you have light cover, you gain, you improve your cover by 1. So basically, if you've got light cover, you get heavy cover. Pretty decent. Gunslinger is very important for him because this turns him from being meh to being like okay. After you perform a ranged attack action, you may perform an additional ranged attack action against a, well, it doesn't say attack action, it says attack, so I think it just counts as one attack, against a different unit. Very good. As I said, that lets him start peppering people, causing multiple suppressions. That's what we're talking about. Sharpshooter, also important. Whilst performing a ranged attack, you reduce your defender's cover by 1. Pretty decent. And he has white defense dice, but those white defense dice aren't as important as it may seem because he gets Uncanny Luck 3, which basically just lets him re-roll 3 defense dice. So very good. Like that, I think, turns it back in favor of like being more like red dice, depending on how many wounds you actually take. Like if you take 20, red dice are obviously better. So but yeah, all in all, very interesting character, I think. And for me, he's more of an agitator. He's not your standard general. He's more cause problems, get in enemies' faces, pepper people, that kind of thing. And you can see that by his like command cards. But let's have a look at a basic like build first for him. Well, I'm not quite on it properly, but let's have a look at Han Solo. I think Esteemed Leader is pretty good with him. He will sort of, with Uncanny Luck 3, white defense dice, and Esteemed Leader, he's quite likely to survive a lot of hits and that kind of thing. So for 5 points, that makes sense to me. And the more obvious one is Duck and Cover, which basically when you get attacked, before you apply dodge and cover, you can take a suppression token. You still get the one from the shooting, but you can take an additional suppression token before that's applied. So then you get low profile will kick in because you'll have light cover because of the suppression cover, suppression cover, and then you'll have heavy cover from low profile. So duck and cover, perfect. I think that's one of the best things on him. It gives you that option to have heavy cover while you're just out in the open. And it might not crop up because you might keep him behind cover, but it might be super important. So I do like that as a combination. And yeah, let's have a look more at his command cards. We'll talk about, I said he's more of an agitator, and I think these sort of show that. So sorry about the mess. Hand shooting first is a classic. It's probably best to hold on to that. So when you get an order, you've got initiative because almost nothing beats, sorry about the mess, well, nothing beats it right now. We'll have to wait and see if anything beats it in the end. But right now it is you go first. And he gets an aim token and a dodge token. Now that can be pretty important in itself. But if you've got something like something with a comm slot, maybe like the Rebel Commandos, or I think ATRTs, they have comm slot. If you've got something like HQ Link, during the issue step of the command phase, issue yourself an order. You can basically give you can use Hancolo, Don Colio. You can use Han Solo, the mess card, give himself an order token, but also give the ATRT or the commandos an order token and let them go first. Now you can imagine in a situation where if you've got a lot of activations, you could possibly have the last activation and then have the first activation. So you could put somebody out in the open, make him look like an easy target or them an easy target, but then sorry about the mess, HQ uplink, get in activating first and sort something out. And that little like tricky things that you can do with Han really demonstrate his all-round usefulness. He's not a support character, say like Leia, but he's like in the right situation and the right plan of action, he can cause trouble, if that makes sense. And Reckless Diversion sort of highlights that even further. When an enemy unit performs an attack, it must attack a trooper unit that has a face-up order token if able. Now that could be Han Solo or a unit of rebel troopers, whatever you've got. And that can honestly ruin somebody's turn. I mean, not your turn, your opponent's turn. If you've got like, you could have Han Solo out in the open, maybe let one unit attack him, but then use Han Solo, and then everybody else has to shoot maybe the rebel unit instead of Han. Or, you could even combine that with Luke, but don't combine that with Luke. But you can get your important piece where you want it to be by sacrificing one of your weaker units and like dictating the turn, basically. So Reckless Diversion, very useful indeed. Change of plans, this is another one. It scuppers your opponent, and that's sort of like Han's signature here. He's scuppering his opponent one way or another. So this one, let's say you both place your card out. So let's say you're playing Imperials, he plays Implacable. Well, I play Change of Plans. I can say like, right, we're not actually gonna, you can't use Implacable, I can't use Change of Plans. Implacable goes back in the thing and we draw a new one. Implacable, he can't then get used that turn. It can still get used in the next turn, but it can really turn the tide of the game. If you know, maybe like turn 6, maybe Luke's saving that, not Luke, Darth Vader's saving that one for turn 6. Boom, you whack that down. He can't use it, essentially. Ruins your opponent's day. And as I said, that sums up Han Solo's playstyle as a whole. Like, that's what he's really good at doing. He's good at scuppering and annoying your opponent in a variety of different ways. I think he's probably best getting up there, getting up in your opponent's face, showing like presence. Me and my friend, when we used to play League of Legends, we always be like, and one of us was supposed that I'm going to show my presence, which was basically I'm just going to run in and attack them as like a support character. But I think he needs to probably be played a little bit aggressively, because if you stand at the back and you wait, he's not going to do too much. He's only range 2 with his range weapon. Yeah, so unless you're holding an objective and people have to come towards you, you're better getting up there, causing problems with who your opponent can target. Maybe have a tricky move with getting your ATRT and double move before your opponent can do anything if you're timing your activations right. Maybe scupper your opponent's turn 6, or when you think Implacable's going to come out, or something really important like that, Son of Skywalker, for example. Something like that, then that's the best time, and the best way to use him is to get a bit more aggressive with him. As for the classic question of, do you put him with Luke or do you put him with Leia? Because I think we can all agree, Han on his own, probably a bit meh. Probably like he's not going to do too much. You probably need somebody else in there helping him. And I don't think you combine him with Luke Skywalker, because if you put him with Luke, it's a lot of points. You're looking at, 180, 280 plus upgrades. You're probably looking at 300 plus points. I don't think as a Rebel player you really want to be doing that. I think you probably want more activation. So I think Luke is out of the question. Maybe somebody will run that and maybe have a great time. I personally don't think so, but that's just my taste. And then we'll have a look at Leia. I think Leia and Han makes sense. I mean, it does in lore-wise as well, but She can be the supporty one. Han can sort of be a cheaper version of Luke, being more like active in his role. So for me, it's obviously cheaper as well. You're looking at 210 points with no upgrades. Sort of feels a bit more like approachable and reasonable. Also lets you spam extra stuff because you've not got Luke. You can put in another AT-RT maybe, put in some Rebel Commandos, have a field day, go wild. So I think like Han and Leia does make sense in that sense. In my personal opinion, I think I prefer Leia and Luke. If I was going for if I was trying to make a really competitive list, that's the list I would make, but I don't necessarily always go for the competitive list. I ran Vader at the FFG Nationals, didn't go well, but I tried it. Luke and Han, nah. Han and Leia, yeah, you've got more points to spend on other things. Those extra points you'd have to make up for not having Luke in your team, in your army, and I'm not sure it would do it, but I'd have to sort of see more games to see it. So for now, if you're wondering how to play Han, get him on the table. Yeah, take a steamed leader, take duck and cover, play him slightly aggressively with Leia at the back, and just try and be a bit tricksy with him. I know it's a bit vague, but hopefully I explained in the video how to be a little bit tricksy with him. Just try it. Remember, you're like pleasantly like annoying your opponent, and you're being a bit like an agitator. Just keep that playstyle in mind. Don't sit back because you're not going to do anything. And yeah, have fun with him. I think he's a fun character, don't get me wrong. And he just doesn't like cover any niches or anything like that. When I look at Boba Fett, I think Boba Fett is desperately needed in the Imperial list because we don't have anybody fast and useful in combat. And Boba Fett makes perfect sense. But in a sense, he sort of most reminds me of like Palpatine. How Palpatine it's like, he doesn't cover anything necessarily in himself. He's sort of, I mean, going off a tangent here, Palpatine's sort of a bit more like a utility-based Vader, I guess, but Boba Fett is like there's a gap in the Imperial list and Boba Fett fits it, and I don't see the same gap in the Rebel list, but Han is a fun character to like play, nice looking ish model. His face, it's okay. I painted mine up. I'll try and put a card up and he looks alright. But yeah, that covers probably everything I'll do on Han for now, unless we start seeing him rock up in tournaments, and I might cover him some more. But for now, that's probably anything. Let me know what you think about this new style of just talking about one character. I might do it for the rest, but I probably will just do it going forward for the new characters like Boba Fett, etc. Yeah, if you like this video, do like. If you're not already subscribed, then come on. Need I say more? If you want to support me on Patreon, there'll be a link here. Thank you to anybody who currently supports me on Patreon or has ever supported me on Patreon. It really does mean a lot. And have a most beautiful day. Goodbye.